Siebes, you went to Magic Round over the weekend. First of all, how was the experience in total?
Mate, the weekend's great. It's the third year in a row that myself and my son have been. It gets bigger and better every single weekend as far as the crowd, the atmosphere, how much fun people are having. This year in particular, I didn't notice any of the rot in the crowd that happened last year. There was a few fights that went on last year.
Forgot about that, yeah.
Yeah, which was it was quite disappointing, especially, I was there with both my kids and my wife, and, it was a bit of a dampener. But this year it was great. Everyone was in good spirits. So it was probably the best one I've been to as far as crowd engagement and everyone having fun. But it is definitely, as far as the quality of footy goes, it's the worst one I've been to.
Yeah, right. I just want to ask a quick question. How did the field play over time? Because it looked horrendous on Sunday afternoon, Sunday night.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It wasn't until that hailstorm hit that's when it started to get chopped up.
Yeah.
And it probably made it more obvious where it had been chopped up as well, because as soon as the water just came in, you could see the puddles start to appear, and then it was quite obvious that, oh yeah, righto. You can see the parts of the field that it was chopped up, but it seemed fine until then.
As far as results on the field go, though, you must have drowned your sorrows on Sunday night.
Yeah, it was it was a tough weekend. It was a tough weekend for me. Footy tipping wise as well, I went terribly, which probably says more about me than anything else. And I thought, okay, well, at least Para can finish off here with a win. And 10 seconds in, Seibold's in the corner. Me and my son were up. We were, on cloud nine. And then Gutho gets put in the bin and it all unravels. And then typical Para form this year, they find a way to get themselves back into it. They actually look like they were the better team. And then the intercept try, and they were chasing their tail again.
It's a bad loss, isn't it?
It is a tough one, yeah. Although, it is. It's a tough one. They should have won that game. I was going to give Titans a rap because they deserve one, but Para should have won still.
Just on the Titans, they've re-signed Jaden Campbell long-term now.
Yeah.
Interesting move. I don't know if you can have a team with both Brimson and Campbell in it.
Agree 100%. And in my opinion, Brimson's a fullback. And Brimson's a better player.
And I agree that they're both fullbacks. Yeah. So what do you do with...
I don't know, unless they're going to try and work on moving Brimson into the halves. That's the only thing I can think of. Yeah,
it's an interesting one. It's
unless Campbell's happy to... And the Titans are happy to have... because I don't know what he's being paid. He's probably not getting paid a fortune. So They might be happy to have that X factor that sits as number 14 on the bench from every week.
Geez, you'd think that another team would be interested in Jane Campbell as their permanent fullback, wouldn't
you? Yeah, you would, but...
I look at a team like...
If you were ranking the fullbacks 1 to 17, all the starting fullbacks, and let's say Brimson's not included at the moment, he's injured, so we'll say Campbell's their starting fullback. Where does he rank? Is he top 10?
No.
Is he top 12?
Probably.
Yeah, I'd find it hard for him to be in the top 15.
But he is young. He's young.
He's not young. He's 24.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Sneaky old.
Yeah, sneaky old. That's how. And I'm not bagging him. I'm not trying to bag him. I'm just trying to put it into perspective.
Yeah. Well, at the moment, both can't stay healthy at the same time,
no,
so that's probably not the worst
right.
thing.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the Cowboys and the Roosters. Just when you thought the Roosters were going to find something, they deliver that. They were horrendous.
They were awful. And live, well, again, I don't know how it played out on telly, but live they were disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. They were trying to go too sideways. I don't know if Brandon Smith suits their style of footy at all. I think we've hinted at this, in earlier weeks, but it doesn't work.
I think the time is now because you can't do what Parramatta's doing at the moment. Like seriously, you can't bog yourself down too far on the ladder because you're going to come up against the Titans who have just turned up that day to get a win.
And look, let's remember too, the Titans aren't going too bad. They've been winning games, and the games they've lost, they've been thereabouts. So,
but the Roosters, the time to me is now to put Smith at 13 or off the bench and Turpin at 9, just to try something.
But Turpin's a better hooker.
Absolutely.
So it might be worth a crack. But what do you do with Radley? Because Radley's a better player than Brandon Smith.
We can bring Smith off the bench and just
true.
play him through the middle.
Yeah.
But they are not working there at all.
So I watched this game end on, and let's not get delusional. Cowboys weren't good.
No.
they just defended for each other. They really were gritty defensively. And then you could tell it was going to happen. Sometimes when a team put in that much effort and they have that much of a crack for each other, which it was clear that the Cowboys were doing on the weekend, the ball starts to bounce for you. Just like that Townsend missed kick that looked like it was going to end up in row 3. It's landed a millimetre inside the sideline and turned at a right angle.
Yeah.
It was at that point there that you knew live. It just had that feeling that the Cowboys win this.
You create your own
You
luck,
create
so.
your own luck, yeah.
We'll move on to... I don't think we need to spend much time on Tigers and St George, really, at the end of the day.
But can I tell you, there was probably that and the Raiders Dogs were the 2 most exciting games of the weekend.
Yeah.
You know, the quality wasn't unreal, but they were the 2 most engaging games.
Yeah. The Storm and South are flying at
South
the
were
moment.
good.
Defensively, I'd be keen on your opinion being at the game. The Storm attack was off, but South's defence, and they've been defensively very good for a while now. They were outstanding, particularly in the first half. Melbourne had so much ball at 20.
Tom, you got to remember this was the last game on day 2.
Yes.
So it had been a long couple of days at the office.
Yes.
The seat that we had for this game didn't really give us a true indication of how teams were looking defensively. But what it did do was we were sitting in that corner where South scored those tries in the second half. It was right in front of us. And you could just see them fall straight into all their structure. They had the shape that they have set up on the left, and they still don't overcomplicate it. It is just 4 blokes. One runs a lead line. Everyone's timing is perfect. Walker takes it right into the line and then either hits his lead man or out the back. And Latrell's just big, strong, and he was a bit grumpy towards the end the other night.
He was in a mood.
We couldn't see that from where we were, and then the replays were a bit tough to get a gauge live. Did it look ordinary?
It was ordinary, yeah, no doubt about it.
It just looked like he didn't look like being tackled.
Yeah, he doesn't like being tackled,
Yeah.
Latrell. But I will say, though, I think it was an execution problem from the Storm, not a personnel problem.
Can I also say, too, last year when we went, there was a clear 4 or 5 teams that were just so much better than everyone. They were so much faster, sharper, fitter. It was obvious. This year it's basically the Souths were the most impressive to watch. Penrith looked like the team that, and I'm sure we'll talk about them in a minute, but they look like the team that are the hardest to beat. Everyone else just looked okay, if that makes sense. Even the teams that, Dolphins and Broncos had good wins.
The difference between the 3rd best team and the 12th best team is not a lot.
No. I didn't think so.
Well, let's move on to a team who I thought would have shown a lot more than this on the weekend. And this, to me, was the most disappointing performance. That was Cronulla.
So, Manly Broncos on Friday night, and we're jumping all over the place, but Manly Broncos Friday night, the 20-minute period in that first half from Manly that was just disgusting.
It was the worst football of the year.
It was Cronulla, hold my beer.
Yeah.
Because it was, you got to look at opposition as well. And Dolphins are so much better than what any of us thought they were going to be. But it's pretty obvious that the Broncos are a better footy side than the Dolphins.
Yes.
It was yuck.
30-0 at halftime, I think it was.
Yeah.
I could only imagine the Sharks coaches at halftime would have been just totally stunned by what happened.
The seat we had for this game was great for anyone who wants to, sit there and watch footy and see the whole field and the shape that people put their attacking structure into, defensively how teams look. There was a really big opportunity for Cronulla to go left a lot, and they didn't. It was really, really poor execution from Hines, from Moylan. I've only got to assume that the coaching staff was sending the message down because Valence Tuare, while he was a wrecking ball with the footy, after 5 minutes, he was struggling to get back on side.
Yeah.
There was opportunities there, and they just didn't keep going there.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Dolphins, you're right, they're so much better than what we thought. But I tell you what, they are in the top 3 or 4 teams as far as effort goes.
Oh, for sure. And Nicarima had a day out, didn't he? He played well. It was one of the best games he's probably ever had.
Yeah, but it's really concerning for Cronulla. I thought they were just warming into it. They started the season ordinary defensively, but that performance the other night, you can't do that. Like, that is no good.
Yeah, well, it was strange. I mean, I just think it's funny now that Manly and Cronulla, who were the 2 most underwhelming teams on the weekend, now they play each other this week.
Well, we'll move on to Manly. Manly completed 6 sets in the first half. You can't be doing that.
Look, honestly, they are lucky that they weren't down 40-0 at halftime.
Absolutely, and with a team with as much a strike as the Broncos do.
That's a good word you use. I didn't think Broncos looked as good a footy side as Souths or as even some of the other sides. But the one thing that the Broncos do have is speed. They are fast.
Yeah, over the park.
All over the park. They're quick. Yeah,
absolutely. And even their front rowers.
Yeah.
Like they're Payne Haas probably the fastest front rower in the comp.
Yeah,
really.
no, they're quick, and it's obvious that they're very quick.
And you look at that game. Obviously, Manly were really disappointing, but I tell you what, they are lucky they didn't concede 50 or 60.
Yeah.
Honestly, that could have been so much worse.
They should have.
And you just knew from the start. Do you think Manly felt a lot of pressure going into that game? Do you think it was a bit of a psychological thing? Because they tried some trick plays really early on that were just no good.
They did. Oh, you got to give credit. The Broncos executed. I just thought it was individuals. It wasn't at the team as a whole that looked ordinary to me. It was, again, without wanting single blokes out, Josh Aloiai. Manly defended their line for, I think, the first 8 to 10 minutes.
Yep.
Just set after set after set. Finally got an opportunity. Saab makes a break. They get a penalty. Piggyback down. They're parked in Broncos 20. 0-all still, or 2-0 it was. And Aloiai drops the ball on the first tackle.
Which is such a shame, because Aloiai's having a really good year.
Gives away a penalty. Marches Broncos downfield. They score. It's 8-0.
Yeah.
And again, then you look at it and you think Manly haven't touched the footy.
And they're down 2 tries.
He drops it again. Piggyback. Broncos are parked down the other end again. Yep. And then in the second half as well. Now, it would have been a miracle if Manly got themselves back in that game, but they were creating opportunities. They actually bombed a couple of tries when it was 20-0. You score 2 tries, it's 2010, 2012. Aloiai drops the ball again.
The second half was 12-6 to the Broncos. That's the type of game I thought we were going to get in the second half.
Yeah.
And it's a tough one for Manly. They're missing Jake. Tom is not right. I don't care what anyone says. He's not right.
He's not. But the old argument is he's not right. He's not Tom at the moment, is he? But he's still better than other blokes playing in that position. That they have, the options that they have.
I get that, but he needs to be good for Manly. For Manly to succeed.
For the chunk of the salary cap that he takes up, he's got to be at his best. I don't know whether or not he plays a little bit of centre for a bit, and Garrett goes back to fullback. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it's a thought that may or may not have crossed Anthony's mind, but I don't know. I don't know if I'd do it or not, but I'd certainly sat there thinking about it.
They've got Cronulla this week. Manly at home, that's a big advantage. Schuster 50-50 to play. We don't think he'll play. Do you think there is pressure around Manly at the moment to get back on track here?
Oh, of course there would have to be. I mean, what are they, 4-4? 4-4 and a draw, I think.
4-4 and a draw.
Yeah, so look, I think this week's probably big for both clubs. What's Cronulla sitting at, 5-4?
5-4, yep.
Like we speak about, or we have spoken a number of times about the let's see how teams are going after 10 rounds, and whoever wins this game is still, in not bad shape. Whoever loses it, things start to get a little bit tough.
This goes back to the point too of, the difference between 3rd and 12th is not a lot, because Cronulla at the moment are 4th on 12 competition points. Manly are 10th on 11.
Yeah.
So there's 1 point separating 3rd and 10th.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's probably what I observed on the weekend. There's no teams that make you sit there and think, oh my God, they're good. But there was a lot of similarities.
You watch Penrith; they beat the Warriors.
Yeah, so this will probably blow your mind. What team do you think had the most missed tackles for the whole weekend?
Was it Penrith?
No, it wasn't Penrith.
Was it Warriors?
It was the Warriors, yeah. And Penrith had the second most.
Yeah, right.
50, I grabbed it before because I remember seeing it at the game. 58 missed tackles it might have been for Penrith. For the Warriors. And Penrith had, just grabbing this right now, Penrith had 47 missed tackles.
Yeah, that's a lot for a game that finished 18-6.
59 it was and it was great conditions then. It was dry, it was daytime footy.
Do you put much stock into the Warriors that they've improved defensively then to be able to, defend those errors?
Yeah, definitely. They're definitely a lot better defensive team. I was starting to buy into the whole Warriors are going all right and, they're a top 8 team. But after watching them, I'm not. And I spoke about before, Penrith live looked like, okay, they're still the hardest team to beat. They didn't look the best team. Because they were bad. Penrith were not good. But at no stage during that game did we ever think Penrith weren't going to win.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last game that we haven't mentioned, the Raiders and the Bulldogs. Jeez, the Raiders can find a way to make easy things look tough. But they're coming, the Raiders.
Yeah, I'm not buying it. But this was probably the first game of the weekend and the last game of the weekend were the two most exciting games. There was plenty of points scored. It was back and forward. You didn't know who was going to, Raiders looked the better side in this game. Let's be honest. But Dogs just got themselves back into it, and right to the death. It was an arm wrestle, and I don't know if Matt Burton's a half.
No, I actually thought this was his early days at the Bulldogs. I actually would have liked to have seen him try fullback.
Fullback, yeah, I think he was a fullback at one point. He's class. Like, you can watch. My mate who I was with, he actually said this to me a couple of times. He's like, when you look at all 34 blokes on the field, you can spot who the Origin players are pretty quick.
Yeah.
And he's that class above everyone. He's just better.
Well, you speak of Matt Burton. Was there any other player that really just looked heads and shoulders above everyone else overall?
This will get me any negative feedback that we get. Jerome Luai.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just got something about him. Like, he's got a presence about him. His footwork. He looks like a bloke that just could create something out of nothing.
And let's be honest too, all this talk around Origin selections and stuff, he's going to be the number 6 for New South Wales. Yeah. Like, they're not going to drop him for game 1.
No. And it was just that, you asked who stood out, and he was just one bloke that it was just obvious watching him that he didn't even have the best game. But just watching him, he's got something that other blokes don't.
I've thought about this for a long time now, and with the talk of him and Dylan Edwards coming off contract together, Penrith might need to move on from one of them. If the Cowboys have any brains to go after Jerome Luai, to partner with Dearden in the halves, and make that your long-term plan, you got to do it.
Oh, of course it is, because it's almost identical to what he's working with now. Let's not pretend Dearden's as good as Cleary.
No.
But if Cleary's a 10 out of 10, Dearden's an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
And it's a similar style, so.
The Cowboys, I know they got a win on the weekend, but if it wasn't for Dearden and Val Holmes, they are nothing.
Well, that's the thing. In that game, the blokes who stood out, and you think, they're just better than everyone in the Cowboy side, was Dearden and Val Holmes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, we'll move on to this week. Big game, Storm Broncos. Who you got?
Oh, Melbourne win in Melbourne.
In Melbourne,
yeah.
The Dogs and the Warriors. I like the Warriors in this one. I'm not giving up on them as a top 8 team, but if they are to make the top 8, these are the games that they've got to win.
Yeah, I agree, but I'm going for the Dogs.
Josh Adokar back is a big benefit for them. Panthers, Roosters. How could you tip Roosters in this game?
You just couldn't. They were so bad. The Panthers forward pack and the South Sydney forward pack, they looked the two biggest and most physical teams.
Isn't that funny? South, their forward pack is actually underrated. Like
They're big. They
yeah.
are big.
Tom Burgess is probably
Yeah.
playing career best form.
Yeah.
South will beat Tigers, Cowboys, and St George. If St George have any,
Okay. All right. Here's a little. I was sitting at the airport yesterday. My flight got delayed 5 hours. But I was lucky that I was able to get into the Virgin lounge, and the Dragons were in there. And after what I observed from a distance, I know Anthony Griffin. I left him alone. Didn't even go over and say hello because I were off in the other corner. But what I observed yesterday is a team that's got a lot of time for their coach.
Absolutely.
He went in, him and another guy who I didn't know from a bar of soap, they sat down on their own. One or two players come in after them and went straight over and sat with them. And within 7 or 8 minutes, wherever the other guys were sitting down and relaxing, they all jumped up and they just swarmed to him and crowded, like surrounded him. So you could see body language. You could just see the way that they were trying to sit with him and be with him. That paints a picture to me. And
I had Jarrell Yayi on the podcast a little while ago. Now, Jarrell only played 60-odd games in the NRL, so he wasn't in the NRL for a lot of years. But I mentioned Anthony Griffin. He'd been coached by Anthony at the Broncos, and the amount of just love and respect he had for Anthony Griffin, and this is 15 years ago that he was coached there. So the amount of love that he said, mate, you will not find a member of that Broncos squad that's got anything bad to say about Anthony Griffin.
Well, I wouldn't have a clue. He's good coach, bad coach. Dragons clearly aren't a good footy side.
Yep.
But as far as any outside noise around them not respecting their coach or wanting to play for him or be with him, it was obvious yesterday.
I hear they all went for a beer yesterday. I think that might have been the best thing for them to get
definitely.
a win.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm going the Dragons.
Yes, so am I. Raiders Parramatta. What a game that is. In Canberra, 0 degrees. Saturday night. No Moses. Para need this.
Para
They
have to win this.
They have to win. And this game could be a low-scoring grind.
This is either the re-emergence of Josh Hodgson or his last NRL game.
That's a good point as well. With no Mitch, you would suspect that Josh would be able to flourish more.
He's got to take some ownership. I don't think it's his attack that's hurting him though. Para's scoring points.
Yeah.
Defensively, he seems to be off the mark. Yeah, a yard or two behind.
Which is a shame because there was once a stage Josh Hodgson was
second best,
top 5 player in the world.
Well, yeah, he was the second best hooker, wasn't he? It was just Cameron Smith.
And the other game worth mentioning, Manly and Cronulla. I think you toss a coin at this game.
Yeah, but look, Manly's at home, so I'll tip him. But it's a toss a coin. Let's
move on to our power rankings for the week. I think number 1 is pretty easy, isn't it?
Yeah. Rabbits.
South.
Yeah, Rabbits have got to move there.
Then I've got Penrith at 2.
I do too.
I've got the Storm at 3. They lose to South, the best team. I don't think you can knock them too much for that. And with the Sharks being so awful last week, I've put the Storm at 3.
Yep. The Storm, they'd still be at 3.
And I've got the Broncos at 4.
Yeah, Broncos have got to move into 4th.
Yeah.
And you could probably flip those two, 3rd or 4th.
The winner of tonight's game will be.
Which I do think, which is why I ummed and ahed, because I just think Melbourne will beat them tonight.
Yeah, I think so too. And our top 5, this is interesting. You know what this proved to me, doing top 5 wingers? This, to me, I feel will be our most different list.
It could be.
I feel like we'll have 2 that are the same, that are pretty undeniable. But as far as the rest, it's whatever you like.
Yeah, it's whatever you like, whoever you support.
Yeah,
and whether you like a quick winger, a big winger, a yardage maker, a finisher.
Absolutely. So we're going to go the other way this week because I feel like
their number 1 will be the same.
I think so.
Yep.
Josh Addo-Carr.
Brian Toto.
Okay, so I've got Toto at 2.
Okay. Now, Josh Addo-Carr's injured. He's been out.
Yep.
He'll be in my top 5, but he's not at 1.
Okay. So I've got Toto at 2. Who have you got at 2?
At number 2, now this was actually really, really, really. I found it's a lot harder than what
it was. brutally tough.
what I thought it was going to be, and I've constantly changed my mind.
I could have had 15 wingers in here just rotating all week.
Yeah, definitely. Number 2, I'm going to slide Adokar back in because he's playing this week.
Yeah. Okay. So number 1 and 2 are the same.
Yeah.
But this is where honestly we could have different players here
Okay.
all around. So my number 3, and this you might think I'm crazy with these selections, but my number 3 is Michele Ravalawa.
Yeah, I do think you're a little bit crazy,
Little
but
bit-
I
little
get
bit
it.
crazy.
But I do get it.
But to me, he is. Whether or not he's number 3 is a different question because I totally understand that. But he is without a doubt over the last 12 months one of the most improved players in the competition.
Yep, he'd be a handful.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's my number 3.
My number 3 is again pure finisher based, and when his mindset's right, his yardage game is great too. But Seibold, again, watching him live so close the other night, it was impressive.
So Seibold's my 4.
Okay,
So who have you got at 4?
4. This one again.
I will. Sorry, just quickly on Seibold.
Yeah.
He's got the potential to be 1.
Yeah, definitely.
but,
Yeah.
but
I
there's-
think people want him to be semi, and he's not semi.
no, he's not. And but 5 meters out,
Oh.
I don't want to deal with him.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So Seibold's my 4. Who are you got at 4?
4, Ronaldo, Mulatalo.
Thought about Ronaldo. I thought
Yeah.
about Sione Katoa as well.
Ronaldo, he was in and out, in and out, in and out. I just think he gets a bit complacent at times.
Yeah.
But as a package, he's a good finisher when he holds the footy. His yardage game's great.
So before we go to 5, I just want to mention a few honourable mentions because there's 50 of them. I thought about Jordan Rapana.
Yep.
I
Yep.
thought about Cobbo. Thought about Coates. I even thought about Will Warbrick because he's coming on leaps and bounds. I thought about Taruva from Penrith.
Yeah, I thought about Nofaluma.
Nofaluma's another one.
Yeah, just because of these meters he makes.
Yeah, and this one is a bit of a projection,
Yeah.
but I'll go Dom Young.
Oh, yeah, Dom Young's very good.
Very
he is
good.
very good.
He's a freak.
He's a monster, athletic freak.
Yeah,
My 5, Xavier Coates.
yeah. Okay.
Um,
So you'd have Coates penned in as an Origin winger right now.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Is it? If you could only take one out of Coates and Young, you'd take Coates.
At the moment, I would.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, there's still, I don't think either of them are at their
No.
potential, but Coates is, his worst game and his best game is starting to get a lot closer. Whereas I still notice Young's, he can be 10 out of 10 young Wendell Sailor or just disgraceful. So,
You know, one person who we both didn't have who might ruffle some feathers, particularly with my younger brother, but to me, he is purely the benefit of where he is at,
Yep.
and he is absolutely not in the same class as these guys. Mind you, he's done very well for his career, and that's Alex Johnson.
oh, of course. Yeah, he's not in the top 10.
No, exactly. And, you know, when you get people talking about he should be on the cusp for Origin selection and Australian selection, you just go, mate, what are we doing
He's
here?
not, yeah. He has played for Australia.
If you put Xavier Coates on the left-hand side for South Sydney, I promise you he scores just as
many.
many
Yeah,
tries.
He does. He does. And the only thing that you get in addition is you get more meters coming out of your own 20.
That's right. So centres next week. Are we going to class Joey Manu as a centre?
No, he's a 5'8" now.
Okay. All right. See, it's good to see you.